I mean, there's just not much to say. Uh, a lot of it is just thinking and kind of sitting in silence. If you guys stuck along, and we appreciate it a lot. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, we'll do better next time.
I'm joined by Apollo after the unfortunate defeat that NRG had against Dignitas. Apollo, that game ended in a sort of a disaster, with Dhokla flashing on and ulting instead of waiting on the Bard ult. Yeah, as a coaching staff, or I guess as a team, you go back into the locker room, your season's over, like people were fighting for their lives, for like their jobs for next year, for their lives for Worlds. What do you say as a coaching staff? Like what's said in that room?
Honestly, well, first off, you never want to be in that room. It's awful. But yeah, I mean, you don't really say too much. You kind of like, I mean, there's just not much to say. A lot of it is just thinking and kind of sitting in silence, to be honest. And obviously, it's just about moving forward. I don't think any of us were talking about how the play was bad or like what. I mean, like we're thinking about it, but it's not. That's just not like you just move on. And yeah, I think that's mostly what you do. Sit in silence and look to the future.
Is that your experience as a player? You've played obviously for a very long time, since you were Wiz Fusion all the way to now. I think you hold the record for. I think you still hold it for playing the most amount of games and not making it to Worlds. I think specifically like that 1 year on TIP where you lost to Team Liquid, and like there was the whole Flash, I will dominate Flash play that you probably hate seeing. When you go into the locker room, is that how you felt? It was just like, maybe thinking over on the mistakes that were made, or like from a player perspective, what goes on?
Yeah, I mean it's like the same. I mean it's the same feeling. I think as a player, obviously it's like way more devastating, but I think something about this year feels different, even as a coach. Um, but yeah, like in those moments, obviously like losing series or even losing games, you just kind of think over. I mean, this was a 5 game series, so and I've been in 5 game series before, and you just think about everything. It's not just like the one game. It's what if I did this in game 2? We could have maybe taken a game, and then we wouldn't even had a game 5 or whatever, right? It's like you kind of just go through everything in your head, and that's why most of the time it's hard to say much. You're just thinking about everything that you could have done.
All right, and I'll try to make it a little later. I know that my first couple questions are a little sad, but you mentioned that this year feels different than last year. What do you think is like the difference between the NRG that went on that super high streak and won LCS and the NRG of this year?
It's a pretty hard question, I think. Like, obviously, I think teams got better, and you just, I mean, that's the cool thing about League is that it's just always adapt. Like, it's always changing, and you always have to be able to adapt. And like, I obviously think that we played better as a team when we won, but the meta changed, champions changed, egos get involved, and on both sides, it's like it's not easy to just stay on top. And this is coming from someone who hasn't been on top almost ever forever. So it's like I think, yeah, it's hard to really pin down like what was different, but I wish I knew the answer.
I will say there were splits where you and Hakuho were like top 2 for sure. Maybe not in placements, but at least as a bot lane, you guys were playing quite well. I have a question about Palafox and Dhokla. I know you worked with them last year. You're working with them this year. Clearly, they're not playing to the highs that they played. And not just that, they're playing at an unprecedented, like, low level, especially for Palafox. As a coaching staff, how do you go about helping a player when they're in a slump?
I think, to be honest, I think it's just very exaggerated. I think all of our players are underperforming to like what their level is. I think some more than others, of course, but like there's always going to be and there's always going to be like people always want to blame somebody or something, and I don't think. Yeah, I think it's a team thing. I think we didn't do well as a team. We didn't do well as a coaching staff. So I don't think it's a Dhokla or a Palafox, like what, just those two or anything like that. I think it was everyone.
Well, I guess I'll switch the topic to more team focused things. Last series against 100 Thieves, I talked to contracts and he was like, yeah, we knew that Senna was like giga broken, but we just hadn't prepared her well. And then you open it game one. Was that like a dare to dig? Like, hey, we have an answer, or we want to see if you guys actually practice? Like, what was the thought process behind opening Senna game one?
A little bit. I think it was a bit of a gamble, but we also, we felt like we could play versus it. It did just, it kind of just breaks the game a bit. I think that's why it was such a priority ban for us later. It's like, yeah, we could open it again and try to play versus it, but it's such an annoying pick that it might not just be. It's worth to just play the normal game. Like if we feel like we're better than these guys, let's just not give them like this potentially broken champion. I mean, then that's the thing. It's like we haven't really seen too much of it. We've obviously played versus it, but this kind of the stats aren't there yet, and it's hard to like fully judge. But we do know that it changes the game, so it was just easier for us to like kind of face them at their normal strength, and thought we could beat them that way.
Another thing that NRG was known for, especially last year, was like their prep. They had all this like I'm not entirely sure, but they were very good at prepping for specific opponents, especially when it came to best of fives. And we saw this best of five, like the game one lane swap goes really poorly. Game two goes way better. Game three was better as well. Game four, like you did a top, like a lane swap where the support is the one that gets shafted, not the top.
Yeah.
Could you maybe run me down through like the idea behind lane swaps and the prep that you guys had, and especially that game four swap?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the players, to be fair. Like they'll make that like in-game decision. I don't think lane swaps in general will be something that we study as like a team and as a coaching staff, but in the moment, they're going to be able to make that decision. In terms of prep for, lane swaps in general, yeah, it really just comes down to draft at the end of the day. Like when they're on stage drafting and we decide, oh, we're going to probably be picking a weaker bot lane or picking a top lane matchup we don't want to play into, we just have to swap. And then in terms of like the actual macro of it, a lot of the times it just comes down to watching what we did in scrims and then trying to like optimize a lot of it.
All right. I think those are all the questions I had. I do have one more question, but before that, I just wanted to say, it's we've definitely missed you in the LCS from being, especially the Travis interviews once a year, with like the nicest pro and your smile every time, moving from team to team, and I really appreciate a lot of the players that have stayed in the league for a very long time and then even moved on to coaching, because that's the type of experience that not many people get nowadays. Being in so many high pressure games, there's only 2 splits and there are less teams and there's no academy anymore. It's just more difficult to get experience. So the fact that we have, experienced players like you, help coaching is really cool to see. And I hope to see more interviews from you at least once a year, like you used to when you were a player. I want to give you the floor to, say some words to the NRG fans, the faithful, after this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing at the end of the day, but I'm glad, if you guys stuck along, and we appreciate it a lot. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, we'll do better next time.
It really is a pleasure to be able to interview Apollo, someone I've been watching since before his name change, which is quite surreal. Every time I meet someone who's been playing for like 10 plus years, so in Apollo's case, I think 11. It's crazy that I get to do this. It's so cool. I didn't do the best job with the interview. I think I tried to make reference to his experience, like failing on the biggest stage, but I didn't do that well. So I kind of like cut myself off cold turkey. Anyways, I know it was a little bit awkward, but yeah, it comes with experience. I don't have that much experience interviewing, and I'm learning. And then I wish I could just sit down with Apollo for a couple hours and just talk about his career. You know, maybe not necessarily Thorin like reflection style, just because I wouldn't be able to get nearly as much as Thorin can. Thorin's way better at it than I am, but more just like, you know, maybe environmental. Like, how was your life when you were in 2013? Like, were you at school? Like, what were you doing? Just like kind of chill, more like he's a nice guy, and it seems like it would be cool to just have a chat with the guy, you know. So, yeah, thank you for actually doing the interview after being eliminated. I know, like this time last year, he had just won LCS and made it to Worlds, and now he's doing an interview because he failed round one of playoffs. Or I guess, yeah, he like not reverse sweep, but the loss to Dignitas was quite tragic. It wasn't round one; they lost round one to FlyQuest, but they got eliminated. You know, yeah, it's kind of tragic to think about how the mighty have fallen. But you know, that's just why I think teams should really invest in brands and not winning, because at the end of the day, I mean, this team kept 4 out of 5 same player. Like, you can't bank on winning every single split. Cloud9 thought last split was a guaranteed win. Like, you just can't. You should probably develop, you know, your brand. And I think it just makes sense because, I mean, why not?